From icon to embarrassment, what happened to Conor McGregor?
How do you think you would beat Ilia Abturo, Top Toro?
It seems as if Conor McGregor has been living two separate lives. His first life was a successful one. When he was a double champ, he was essentially running through everybody. He was turning himself into a star, and eventually he made himself into the biggest star in UFC history.
Good exercise, good music, good clothes, good food. These are the things I love. Competition. I love competition.
The notorious Conor McGregor!
The first man ever to hold two titles simultaneously.
Oh, that looks good! Oh, that looks good, God bless.
But the second life that Conor has been living has been one of defeat. Losing a bunch of fights to Khabib Nurmagomedov and Dustin Poirier, having all of his blunders outside of the octagon, and it just seems like as of late, Conor McGregor is a completely different guy than he was when he was at the top of his game. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicyMMA. I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. And if you guys enjoy the videos and want to support the channel, be sure to hit that join button for members only live streams, videos, alongside with other perks as well. But anyways, let's get into it. Conor McGregor originally signed with the UFC in 2013, and as soon as he signed with the company, it became increasingly more obvious that the UFC had a star on their hands. Not only was Conor winning fights, but he was also doing so in very dominant fashion, TKOing or even KOing most of the opponents he went up against. As when Conor went up against Marcus Brimage for his UFC debut and KO'd him in only a minute and 7 seconds, that's really where the rocket ship that was Conor McGregor started. From there, he beat a very young Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier in dominant fashion in both of those fights. Outside of that, Conor was able to beat Chad Mendes to become the interim champion, then move on to beat Jose Aldo in only 13 seconds to become the undisputed champion of the featherweight division, and from there, Conor's stardom really went to another level, as he was then able to beat a big name in Nate Diaz in the rematch, and then most importantly, he was able to beat Eddie Alvarez to gain his second belt in extremely dominant fashion, knocking out Eddie Alvarez in the second round after dominating him throughout the entirety of that fight. And at that point, after beating Eddie Alvarez, if you just stopped and looked at what Conor was able to do in such a short amount of time, it was very impressive. Conor was able to accomplish essentially everything that he would have wanted. He was a 2-division champ, he beat a lot of great names over the years, while at the same time turning himself into the biggest star in UFC history. But unfortunately, after all the success that Conor had, he was starting to go into his second life, and that was a life of disappointment, as he then went on to fight and box Floyd Mayweather. And in that fight, Conor made a ridiculous amount of money, over $100 million for one singular fight, which obviously was significantly more than the amount of money he made in all of his fights combined previous to that. And if you look back to an interview previous to Conor McGregor making it to the UFC, his original goal of fighting was to make a ton of money for not only himself, but also his family. Enough money to where him and his family could be financially secured for the rest of their life, and also be financially secured for generations to come. And after fighting Floyd Mayweather and making over $100+ million, he kind of secured that. And even though Conor McGregor ended up losing via TKO in the latter half of that boxing match to Floyd, it didn't really matter. He secured all of the goals that he sought out to originally when he decided to join the UFC. In the UFC, he became the biggest star in the company while at the same time beating a bunch of huge names, and now after fighting and boxing Floyd Mayweather, he made more money than he could have ever needed for not only himself but also for his family. But while on one hand that was a good thing for himself financially and for his family financially, on the other hand it kind of ruined his career to an extent. As after boxing Floyd, a lot of fans thought Conor McGregor would just retire. What's the motivation for him to come back to the UFC and fight? He already has all the money in the world and he's already accomplished essentially everything. But then 2018 happened. Khabib Nurmagomedov became the undisputed champion of the lightweight division, while also not too long after that, him and his team decided to intimidate or try to intimidate one of Conor McGregor's best friends at the time in Artem. And this really angered Conor McGregor. After that, we saw the bus or dolly incident with Conor trying to go after Khabib. We saw Conor losing it online, just trying to get to Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Send a message, hey, come here, this place, and that's it. Without security, without UFC, without nothing. Just send me a message, let me know where, and that's it.
Until eventually we got the signing of the biggest fight in UFC history, Conor vs. Khabib. And this fight was huge for a couple different reasons. The first and most obvious is the fact that Conor McGregor was back. Conor was a ridiculously big star, and especially after boxing Floyd Mayweather, he even grew his stardom even more. So the fact that this guy was coming back to the UFC was huge, but the other reason for why this fight was so big was because him and Khabib had such significant beef. And based upon those factors, Conor McGregor vs. Khabib Nurmagomedov turned out to be the biggest fight in UFC history.
It's the biggest anything in combat sports right now. I mean, this thing is trending so big, and I know you guys have been hearing me say this for 2 weeks, but the thing just keeps going like this. Every day the numbers go up bigger and bigger.
But although the event itself turned out to be very successful, the fight itself wasn't all that successful for Conor McGregor, as he ended up getting dominated for the majority of that fight, and he ended up getting submitted in the 4th round of that fight. And after that loss, it's not like things got better for Conor. Yes, in 2020 he did beat Cowboy Donald Cerrone via a first-round TKO in only 40 seconds, but after beating an aging Cowboy Cerrone, he took a pair of losses in 2021 to Dustin Poirier. Getting TKO'd in the 2nd round by Dustin Poirier the first time he lost to Dustin, and the 2nd time he lost to Dustin, it ended up being a doctor stoppage where Conor broke his leg. But even in that fight, Dustin was having a lot of success. And unfortunately for Conor McGregor, that's really the last time we saw him. Yes, in 2024 he was supposed to fight Michael Chandler, but that fight got cancelled, and we haven't seen Conor McGregor fight ever since losing and breaking his leg to Dustin Poirier in 2021. So obviously when you compare the fighting accomplishments and accolades of Conor McGregor before he fought Eddie Alvarez and after he fought Eddie Alvarez, it kind of feels like two separate careers. And the second half of Conor's career has been very disappointing. But probably even the worst part for Conor McGregor is it's not like he just took a couple of losses and that was it. Outside of the octagon is really where Conor McGregor's career went downhill, probably even more significantly than it did inside the octagon. Cheating allegations, slopes allegations, even steroid allegations. Ever since Conor lost to Floyd, there has been so many different allegations and so many different negative things that has happened to Conor McGregor outside of the octagon. So when you look at Conor McGregor before his Eddie Alvarez fight, you're talking about a guy who is extremely disciplined, a guy who was the best fighter or one of the best fighters in the entire UFC, a guy who was extremely focused on his goals and was able to achieve that. But ever since that Eddie Alvarez fight, or really ever since the Floyd Mayweather fight, Conor has been a completely different fighter and a completely different person. There was an interview a while ago about Conor talking about partying and how partying was a weakness for the soul.
Partying is weakness for the soul, my friend, so I try and avoid it.
But when you fast forward and you look at the type of person that Conor is at this point, he's kind of everything that he didn't want to be when he was originally making his come up. So it definitely is pretty upsetting to see what happened to Conor McGregor over the years. But of course, there is still time to make changes for Conor McGregor to get more serious in fighting or get more serious in his life and make some significant changes. But in terms of Conor's fighting career, I highly doubt we're ever going to see him again in the UFC or even in boxing for that matter. I know the White House card is coming up and a lot of guys, including Conor McGregor, have been extremely excited about it. Conor himself even talked about it multiple times that he wants to be back on this card, that he is going to be back in the UFC's testing pool. But at the end of the day, as I talked about in a bunch of my live streams and a bunch of my videos, I kind of just need to see it to believe it with Conor McGregor. There's so many things at this point that go alongside with his name, and even if he says he's interested in something, maybe in a week from now, a month from now, 2 months from now, he may not have that same level of interest. So we'll see what happens. I guess only time will tell what does end up happening, but as I said, in my opinion, I don't think it's super likely we ever see Conor McGregor fighting again. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. In your opinion, what's the main reason for why Conor has been going on the decline in terms of his personal life as well as his fighting career as of late? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now. And until the next time, peace out, guys.